who doesn't like the smell and feel of leather? Looking to fulfill your custom leather needs? Well, as we say here in Jersey, I got a guy. Rob over at Ridgway Leather Works is literally that guy. Several years back, I happened to be sat next to him at a mutual friend's wedding, and this dude told me more about leather than I ever thought I needed to know. His passion for his business is evident in the quality of his work. His team and his family hand make all their gear. So whether you're looking for a radio strap, a radio holster, a pair of suspenders, a chin strap, a locker tag, or really anything leather related, Ridgway's the place to go. So check them out at ridgwayleatherworks.com or on IG at Ridgway Leatherworks. And tell them Pip from the Size Up sent you, and maybe you'll get a special Jersey treat in your package. What's up, everybody? Happy Tuesday. If you're actually listening to this on a Tuesday, the day it released, it's your old friend, who's not really that old, but kind of old, Pip, here with the Size Up by National Fire Radio, episode 36, with a very good friend of mine. I guess, yeah, I'm going to go with a very good friend of mine.
I would stay with that.
But he's just jumping in, too, because he's been a podcast host in the past, which I kind of forgot until now. But I'd say we're very good friends. But it's one of these things where, you know, it's great to have friends, but I kind of consider this guy on my board of directors. And I think I've talked about that on some past podcasts too. And I know other people have, and it's a great concept out there, but it's that sounding board of people that, like, when you need to ask someone a question and you're trying to get varying opinions, this guy is on my very short list of calls, especially because he's a Jersey guy. And when I need something in New Jersey, he seems to always have a guy or the answer, or some way to level me. So he's a mentor, he's a friend, he's on my board of directors, he's whatever he is, and he's retired, which is really what I think this episode is going to be the most about. And I'm going to murder his last name like it's been murdered his whole life, and I've done it so many times. But my good buddy, retired Battalion Chief John, as I murdered his first
Kill
name.
the first name. Come on.
I'm such a pro at this
podcast. Oh man, I'm scared for the last name.
No, it's Hayowyk, right?
Hayowyk, absolutely. Yeah. You knocked it out of the park. You killed John, but you knocked it out of the park with Hayowyk.
Listen, man, I'm a firefighter first. I am not a podcast host first. All right, plain and simple. And we're both complaining. So for those of all of you listeners worldwide and not in New Jersey, the fall time in New Jersey is peak allergy season, and we are like in the middle of death if you have allergies, right?
Oh yeah, I came down with just something just the other day, and I'm actually leaving to teach later this week as well as next week. So I've been trying to jump on top of this, and my head's finally starting to ease out, but the sinus pressure and all that other good stuff. So if I sniffle a little bit, it's on me.
I feel bad. I sent my 13-year-old to school now 2 days in a row, and his allergies are horrible, but he wants to go. Like if I was Finn, feeling the way he's like, his throat is all scratchy,
home all day long.
In bed. Yeah, I'd be laying in bed licking my hands like Ferris Bueller did, just to try to be like, I don't want to go to school today. And this kid
is the thermometer up with the lamp, all that good stuff.
Yeah. No,
I'm sick.
This kid's like, nah, Dad, it's just my throat. It's just my throat. I'm gonna go to school. I'm like, yeah, you go to school, buddy. I got a busy day today.
You rock it out, kid.
Right? Isn't that the best part of like again, parenting, but where you're like, you look at your kid and it's like, he's not making the mistakes I made or conniving like I did.
My daughter's the same way. My youngest, she's in 7th grade and she loves going to school. She's on her grades. That's one of the newer things that's from when we were in school. They can see their grades in like real time.
Yeah,
and she knows
in the portal.
She knows what she's getting and she's on top of it, which is really cool. You know, that's definitely different from my my older kids.
But, yeah, for sure. I mean, it just the change in that, and like thinking back, like I remember getting my grades. I have them floating around my house somewhere, like handwritten report cards. You know what I mean? With the letters in there.
Back in the day, yeah.
Yeah. And now they have this real-time portal that they can look in and see exactly where they are and what they need to do. For us, where I am, it doesn't start until middle school. So my little guy just entered middle school in 5th grade. So now he's starting to experience that. And he just got 100 on his first science test, and he saw it and was so excited to see that average. So it's keeping that up and keeping them in check, kind of.
And you know what? That just feeds into what's going on in society with that immediate, I don't want to say gratification, because if you fail, it's not really gratifying, but like, you know where you're at.
Yeah, for sure.
Right away.
Yeah.
So, you need to improve, or you need to not coast, but like keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
You're on the right path for studying and stuff like that. I remember dreading report card night. My parents got to go to the school, and I went to Catholic school
Yeah. Yeah.
all my life. And, I just remember dreading it. Like, oh, what am I getting? I don't know. I should be this, but hopefully I'm not that.
No, but that almost like, instant gratification for them, or that, again, knowing that you're on track is so amazing, because as a parent, it gives me something to challenge them with, to be like, buddy, you're at a 91 right now. You don't want to float to an 89, right? So what are you doing to make sure you get that 91 to a 95, as opposed to those old school kind of Catholic school days of ours where I mean, we're around the same age. So did the parish priest come in to give you your report card in front of everyone and talk to you about it like they did in my Catholic
No,
school?
no,
Oh,
no, no.
yeah.
We in high school, like it was a parents' night. They had to go and pick up your report card and then speak with your teachers.
Oh, that's a bad one.
It's rough.
That's a bad one.
Rough.
High school for me was it got mailed home digitally. So if you could beat the mail home, you made
All right. So when did you graduate? I graduated in 93.
96.
All right. So
So it's not too far off. But yeah,
not
we
too
had
far.
digital mail homes for high school. But yeah, I remember those days, and that instant gratification thing. Again, there's positives and negatives to it, right? And you as a parent, or as the adult in the equation, you have to use that as a tool to help your kids grow, right?
Correct. No, you're 100%. And that's the biggest thing, just trying to get your kids to grow. And that's one of the newer things that have come into this dynamic after actually being retired. I'm around more, but I'm not. So Amy's always going to be my constant at the house, and she's going to run the house and handle the kids, and I'm there, but I'm just seeing more of it now. And that's, we'll talk more about that. But I wanted to touch base about what you were talking about, your board of directors. We call them ourselves a firehouse kitchen table.
Yep.
I've got 8 guys that I know I can reach out to from in New Jersey all the way out to California, that if I need something, and they throughout my career, they definitely help me steer me in the right direction, what to do, what not to do, how to handle certain situations. And it was so important to get an outside opinion that was independent,
Yeah.
not having somebody that was subjective, like, oh, hey, if I give him this information, that'll later on trickle down the line, the chess game, not checkers. And but it was great to have independent information in how to handle certain situations, especially as a lieutenant captain, especially as a battalion chief.
Well, that too. And when you have this group of people that are out of your department or your area that you can call, you don't know the person that's in question, right? So, like when I'm calling you for advice about someone else or a situation that happened, if you know the players involved, you already have a preconceived notion of them. But when you go to this firehouse kitchen table or board of directors, I give you a scenario, you have no idea who's right, who's wrong. And honestly, I'm usually calling you or one of these folks to tell me I'm wrong. You know what I mean? Not to tell
Yeah.
me that I'm right. I don't want you to agree with me. I want you to be like, well, Pip, you were a little wrong in this situation too.
Again, getting a different opinion, or just an idea of whether you're on the right track. That instant gratification thing,
Yeah.
knowing, hey, or I got to take a step back. I didn't see it from this angle, and maybe I got to look at it a little bit differently.
Yeah, and that's again only going to help you as a leader, right? And we say this, and you hear Jeremy say this all the time, and it's great because we're cutting up these shorts now of the podcast. So I guess for instant gratification, you don't have to listen to the whole episode, but please do, because there's way more than just the shorts in it. But you hear this thing about getting out there and meeting other people and networking, like we had talked about.
Huge.
I mean, look at you and I. I couldn't even tell you when we met at this point. I can't
I
remember
I don't
how
know.
or when. Yeah, there's some people where I have the moment, where I'm like, oh, I met you here the first time, but
Truthfully, I think it was probably FDIC.
it was there. Or I know we went to the Fools thing up in North Jersey because that's where I met your dad
Yep.
that night, which is the night
Yep.
that I kind of remember. Maybe that was when we became friendlier. But it's that thing where if you're not getting out, if you're not leaving your little nest or comfort zone, even just a couple episodes ago, Tyler was on from Florida, and he talked about going to a conference. I'm pretty sure you taught at in Florida, and I can't remember the name of it, but he talked about just going there and meeting all these different people and being humbled in his experience, but now having a greater network.
It's one of the things I preached down at work. You got to get outside your I called it 3.2 square miles because that's what the city of Passaic was. You got to get out of that bubble and see what's going outside of the state, the city, the state, and go nationally.
Yeah.
Getting to one of these national conferences or now one of these micro conferences that are popping up that are, you're getting big name people at these smaller conferences and it's easier to get to, maybe a little bit more affordable.
Definitely more affordable. Let's go with that for the first part. But even a night, like not even a micro conference, but when you see people like the night that you when I met your dad up in North Jersey, it was a night
Yep.
at a bar that Bobby Eckert
Was
talked and
talking at. Yep.
someone else spoke that night. And it was just a good night of you get to pick up some nuggets of knowledge, you get to meet some different folks, you get to have a couple beers, and you made yourself better for it, right? And a nice simple night out.
Even at these micro conferences afterwards, I call it the class after the class.
Yeah.
Of course, my dog is barking right now.
That's all right.
It's the class after the class. We just sit around and talk, and it doesn't have to be on what you taught. It can be anything, the wide range of stuff that goes on in the fire service, from administrative to tactical to apparatus buying to equipment.
To
It's
nothing
everywhere.
about the fire service either, just about
Correct.
whatever you guys want to talk about. Sports, what you're wearing, you like fly
Huge.
fishing. Oh, I go hunting, whatever it is. All these things are going on. And it's such an important part of, again, going back to growth and our growth as just men, women, people, whatever you want to call it, humans. And you get to hear other people's stories, and it's probably the number one thing I miss about not keeping 555 at the level that it started out at is being able to interact with so many different people on different levels. And, forgive me if you've heard this story from me before, but, going around as the fitness guy for 555 Fitness, especially in the beginning, there would be people that would walk by us at the show when we had the booth and kind of not leer at us, but not want to come anywhere near us, right? They just would not want to do it. No big deal, whatever. We're talking to people, we're moving on. But then that night out at the bar with a beer in my hand, that same person would come over and start talking to me. And I would remember some of these folks, just their faces as walking by and remember this. And they'd be like, I don't understand. You're the fitness guy and you're here drinking beer. I'm like, I am. You could buy me one if you want to. Like, it's cool because I can do this every now and again or whenever I want to or whatever it is, and their guard got knocked down is what I'm getting at.
Well, I think they didn't want to have to do that, the bicycle and then the CPR. And calling people out of the audience.
CPR challenge. True.
Yeah,
true.
exactly.
A lot of it too just came down to because at the bar we're just two firemen talking. If you stopped in the fitness booth at the show, then you're talking to the fitness guy, and people are going to wonder why maybe you're talking to the fitness guy. It's the same with a training class,
because you might want to get in better shape.
you may just want to be in really good shape for this job. Just maybe a thing.
Just saying.
But it's the same as what you hear with people not wanting to take classes. They don't want to embarrass themselves, let's say, by not being able to do a skill or not being able to do something. And we see that a lot in any field.
Well, just want to touch and base on classes and stuff like that. I just got back from Wildwood. New Jersey had their firefighters convention, their annual convention. And the nice part about this is they're starting to bring back education. New Jersey State Chiefs Association sponsored Chief Turpak and Chief Aaron Heller for
more Jersey guys.
2 90-minute classes. What's that?
I said more Jersey guys. Perfect.
More Jersey guys, exactly. To do 2 90-minute classes. And they got CEUs out of it. I know Bobby Eckert ran his hot class on Thursday, probably around the same time. But it's I think, and I'm hoping that there's a change in culture.
Yeah, well, you see that. So for folks outside of the New Jersey area, the New Jersey Wildwood Convention is traditionally sort of a party weekend, let's call it, is an easy way.
That's the best phrase.
The easiest way, and it's a conference for both New Jersey volunteer and career departments through our relief/exempt organization, and there were no classes for a very long time. I was very fortunate. I used to teach extrication for roadway rescue, and we were able to teach a class there that was not sponsored by the conference itself. It was actually sponsored by the Wildwood FMBA local at that time, but we were able to teach there. And then there were no classes for a while. And now you see these classes starting to come back and put that education spin for folks that are down there. So it's education and party weekend down at the Jersey Shore.
No, absolutely. And we're looking forward to doing it again next year.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just going to grow. I hope it continues to grow, because that's what every conference needs, some form of education that's going to make the folks leave there better, right?
No,
And
absolutely.
that's the type of conference too where you could have a really nationally known keynote speaker come in and deliver a really powerful keynote to all those folks that are there, maybe telling them some things they didn't even know they needed to hear.
Yeah, I hear you. Do you hear my dumb dog barking in the background?
I don't know. Well, I
All
got
right,
the
good,
headphones on,
perfect.
I got nothing. Usually
Even
mine
better.
starts barking at like the half-hour mark. Clary
Good,
starts to
good.
bark, so you don't have
So
to worry.
you want to get into retirement or what?
You
How
wanted me
long?
to
All right,
hear
how many
retirement.
years? Where's the countdown for you?
For me, I have 5 years to go. So
It's gonna fly. It'll absolutely fly. The days seem to go by slow, but the years fly right by.
yeah,
I
the
was amazed
24s
at
go
where
by
I was.
slow. The 24s go by slow, but the months go by really quickly.
Correct. Correct. It was definitely it was pretty wild. I got lucky. I started out when I got hired in 2000. Um, I brought 3 years over with me.
Okay.
I was a dispatcher and a fire inspector, so I was able to bring 3 years over. So I started it ahead of the game, and you know, like I told you, we talked about before, timing in life is everything. With opportunities and everything else, and I was able to do. I did my 25, and there were things on the horizon that I think wouldn't have been there if I had to stay a little bit longer. And I was able to capitalize on some training conferences and bouncing around. This month is crazy. As I said, I was in Wildwood for last week. I'll be up in Syracuse at the Heavy Rescue Conference, assisting in the forcible entry track. And then from there, I drive out. My father and I drive out to Firehouse, and we're going to be doing our Through the Lock as a pre-conference, 4-hour pre-conference class, and then I'm teaching my command class the next day. So it's those opportunities definitely wouldn't be there, or the ability to get out, because doing for those that listen elsewhere outside of New Jersey, our 24/72 sometimes doesn't allow that.
As great as the schedule is, and it's harder too as you get promoted because your pool of swap folks goes down, right?
Correct.
So it's listen, I tell everyone try to get promoted. It's the best thing you can do. But remember, it's not all the grass isn't always greener on the other side.
A little
So
bit lonelier too at times.
it could definitely be lonely at times. But that's one of the things where, when you're a firefighter, you can swap with a lot of different people. When you're an officer, your numbers go down because you can only swap with another officer. But when you think about that end of it too, and now I like totally forgot my track mind for where I was going with this, but it's those things that allow you to continue to grow in your career. And it's funny how you were a dispatcher prior. I had the opportunity to either become a police dispatcher or go work on an ambulance. And I was like, I don't want to be a dispatcher. I'm going to go work on an ambulance. I'll get way better experience, just more things. And long story short, I ended up becoming an EMS dispatcher because they were going to pay me more money to be cross-trained to do the EMS dispatch. But if I took the police dispatch job, I too would be able to retire now, because you're allowed to transfer time over in New Jersey from other municipal employment. So you're able to bring time. I was not able to do that like you were. Lucky you.
I didn't even know about that when I was doing it. It just turned out to be one of those things. And that we were like, for a small town, we were police, fire, and EMS, and one dispatcher handling everything. So it's just fun and games. And obviously, as an inspector, it's just part of it. But that created more of a well-roundedness for me.
Sure.
Understanding the aspect of, do I give the dispatcher attitude when I'm not when I'm not happy with what's going on the other side of the radio, or do I, make that phone call later on and talk to them?
It does. I feel like, and I know there's departments that do this, but everyone should spend a shift in dispatch, because you get a totally different view of that other side of the mic. And yeah, I've given some folks sass on both ends of the mic. Let's call it sass is a
Yep.
good way to put it, and it just is what it is, and it's part of the job, let's say. But when you've done that job, you really understand it. And it's been a very long time. I mean, I worked per diem I worked for DM for a while as a dispatcher before I became a medic. So I was still doing it in there, but I try to remind the folks that work with me, just what that job can be like. And, just they're not answering you because, well, they may be answering you because they don't like you, but that's usually on you more than anything. They're probably not answering you because they're answering someone else right now. It's a good way
Yeah.
to.
Whether it's a 911 or something else, or yeah, it's definitely crazy, especially if for the ones that were doing multiple disciplines, PD or
Yeah.
fire and EMS at the same time.
Or in there alone. I think probably now there's way less single because everybody's going to regionalized dispatching. So there's multiple dispatchers and things or people in the room, but I've done it by myself. My partner was in the bathroom type of a thing, and every phone is ringing and every radio is going off, and you're like, holy,
Yep.
here I go.
Stand by.
Yeah.
Why you giving me attitude? I'm not giving you attitude. Just telling you stand by.
I don't need to know that you cleared the hospital. I don't need to answer you that you cleared the hospital because I'm
Yeah,
giving
received.
CPR instructions over here and trying to get the ambulance to go to the CPR call at the same time. So,
Oh,
but that is a different view of it all. And I think too, like you said, it creates that well-roundedness, so in your career, I think that's something you've really worked towards is becoming that well-rounded firefighter, fire officer. And now in your retirement, you're continuing it. But of all that time, what are some of those key things that you think you did to get that roundedness? Oof.
just opportunity. Again, we talked about it was just timing. Things came up, and I guess I looked at it as a challenge sometimes. Like, hey, this is something new. You get the excitement of it, and then just to do it and learn it, and then get better at it and push it. Whether as a firefighter, always striving for better. As a lieutenant, the same thing. Just to learn and model yourself. So you model yourself after like two different people, right? The good officer and the bad. You don't want to be the bad one, and you want to model yourself like the good officer, and that worked for both captain and all the way up through the ranks, captain and battalion. You knew who you didn't want to be associated with, or not associated, modeled after,
Yeah.
and you strive for certain things on the radio. There's different people that were on the radio that were able to give, I'll call it good radio for size ups, and you're pulling up on scene, your brief incident report, building height, construction, what you got, you know what I mean? All
Yeah.
that good information.
Well, I think what you said in there too was that you learn something and then you have to practice it, right? So you can go and take, there's loads of size up classes out there and they're all great and you're going to pick things up from them. You know, for me in my department, when I'm giving a size up, if I give you the building height on the radio, that means that that's really a key thing that everybody needs to know, right? If I
Oh,
pull up
absolutely.
and it has nothing to do with the building height, here's a better one than building height. And then, I've told this to the guys that work with me, and I'm on the car right now, so it's what I'm doing. I'm like, if I say something about an exposure and you're coming in, know that that means that exposure is a problem. I'm like, if you don't hear me say a word about exposures anywhere, we're not worried about exposures.
Yeah.
That's not on my top list. And that
It's
comes in with that practice.
it's the words you say and the words you don't say.
Yeah.
Because normally if you're always given the same four pieces of information and then you drop it out or you add something different, it's definitely a clue. Dead end hydrant is a key one. That
Huge,
last
huge.
that huge 12 alarm fire that we had, the last hydrant on the dead end street before the river was the only one that worked. The guys hit two of them that were dead coming in, and I'm like, well, I know it's a city hydrant because it's got a 5-inch stores on the steamer. I said, I'm hoping this works because this thing
What
was
we got.
sailing.
But
That's all we got.
it's one of those things that, again, it's what you don't say and what you do say. And it's also telling your people these are things that are important for you to know. I've worked for some folks that didn't tell us anything about their leadership management style at all. And it showed itself when they arrived. and their lack of whatever you want to call it when they got there. But you'll have that, and that is that growing to become well-rounded, and that not just going, you know, you and I'm sure you see this because you teach all over the place. I'm sure you've seen the same people at different conferences taking every class known to man, but not really taking anything from those classes. Is that an easy way to put it?
Yeah, they're not getting anything from it, and they're not growing or hearing it, or
Or they're
and
only hearing what they want to hear because they don't want to leave their bubble, right? Like,
right, the comfort zone.
yeah, well, the Passaic guy said this, but we're not going to do that here because it doesn't
Yeah,
work.
he's Passaic.
Yeah.
So funny story. I'll say it. I was a disciple of Chief Turpak in his books, in his training, and I'll say he used a great thing for height, for size up. He talks about the half story. Half story means a pitched roof.
Yep.
I use that because we know in Passaic, anything that's like a half story is potentially occupied. We're stacked and
Okay.
backed. We had 100,000 people in 3.2 square miles, and they're in attics and basements. But if I give the pitched roof, it gives the truck guys an idea of what equipment to use and what kind of ladders and all that other good stuff compared to a flat roof. I call it a even number. So now if I brought that up when I was teaching down in Pensacola at a county fire tactics command officers boot camp, and I got roasted by some of the senior guys and guys like I look as mentors, like, why it's only a half story if it's occupiable, or I'm like, this is what we did. And I thought it was good, but my guys, my shift, my crews knew that if I said half story, it was a pitched roof. It was just something for them to create that picture and that size up aspect of it, of knowing to paint that picture of what we have, what kind of building. You're giving you're building the building type, classes, and your occupancy type, which is huge because now you can tell, whether it's strictly residential, commercial over residential, whatever.
Yeah, and it matters to be, again, it's just that being a good communicator. So much of what we do in life, whether it be on the job, whether it be in your marriage, with your family, is communication, right? And how you're able to communicate with everyone around you. And most of the guys I've worked with long enough, they know when I'm not happy, just like my kids know when I'm not happy at something. They know when I'm having a bad day and maybe taking it out on someone, and they know when I really mean it that I'm not happy about something, and that all comes down to that communication. And you also have to understand as a person how you're communicating, with that modeling behavior. And I just talked about it with my last guest, Ricardo Alameda, when it comes to your kids. How you're modeling yourself in front of your kids is a huge part of how they're going to develop in life.
Oh, 100%. And I know we talked about this plenty of times off air. I did a size up when I walked into the firehouse. We have only two houses, and when I walked in, I talked to every guy. Looked them up and down, see where they're at. Are you mentally in it? Are you out of it? You had a bad day, you had an issue, something going on at home. Do that. I did that with my officers, conversations, ask about their families, what's going on, how's everything been, just brief things, and then throughout the day checking on them if they were off. And same thing with me. We know our people good enough that they know when I'm off or something's going on.
Yeah.
So
or someone should, maybe not everybody knows that, but there's someone on your shift or someone,
probably some of the officers.
Yeah, someone that you deal with that's like, yo, what's up, man? Like, what did you bring in today, or what happened last
what
night?
baggage?
Yeah, what baggage? Yeah, it's 100% what baggage, because we do that, right? And everyone does that. It's human nature. Now, maybe in the fire service of the past, and I know everybody wants to ride on the back step and wear hip boots and do things they've never done before, even though they feel like they should act like they were the best times ever. But back in those days, those types of things never happened.
No.
And if they did, they weren't even noted, and as you were a second generation firefighter, your dad was a volunteer firefighter, still is now.
Yep.
My father was a career firefighter. I got to see that and hear his stories, and the things that he tells me now that he sees me doing with people. He's like, we never acted that way with each other like that.
We just let them go.
Yeah,
it let them go to their room. That's it.
It doesn't
Hopefully
mean it
we
was
see him in
right.
the morning.
Yeah, and he'll be like, yeah, it's funny because my dad will be like, yeah, I probably shouldn't have done that when that guy said that. I probably should have handled that a different way. And watching him kind of get a little like coy and be that way, because he'll still tell me the same stories that I've heard my whole life, which some are hysterical and some are like, Dad, that guy was not a good time.
You know what was flashing in front of you?
Yeah, I completely missed that one. But in reality too, they didn't.
Different
Right?
culture.
Because different culture, different time. We can't. I think people confuse tradition with maybe nostalgia. I'm not really sure what I want to go with, but like it was cool, man. They got to ride on the back step. They got to my dad was an open cab tillerman. I guess that's pretty cool, except when it's 5 degrees out. So if
Correct.
we can avoid doing that, I would much rather avoid doing that these days.
Yes. Totally get
Right?
that.
Like you have to look at those things. And I think that's a big part of, again, that growth in leadership and that change of moving forward.
And that change definitely happens when you retire.
I was
We're
just going
going
to ask. So,
we're
so,
going
so how, so wait, before, because we got off on a tangent. Retirement
oh,
is a,
we went down
right?
the rabbit hole, absolutely.
But you asked me how long I have left, and I know it's 5 years, and I don't know what I'm going to do in 5 years. I know I'm probably going to go is my plan. Anything can change in between now and then, but that's pretty much my thought process. And one of the things that you hear people say is how hard it is to go. So what I'm doing is I am already mentally preparing myself for how hard that last day will be, and not just the last day, but that week, month, 6 month, however long it takes after. But no matter what, whether I go at 25, whether I go at 26, whether I go at 27, that day is always going to be hard. Right. And so talk
Correct.
through kind of that as being a guy who had to make the call and it was time to go.
So everything's timing. Like I've said it a couple times today. Timing is everything. And it was just the right time for me.
Hey, listeners, have you heard of hikes? Not hikes or hacks or hyaks. It's hikes. Their name gets mispronounced all the time, sometimes even by me. Anyway, they've been in the fire boot game for a while now, and they just keep coming out with new technology for boots and footwear. I know, boot technology, but it really exists. They have the XR1 Pro, which is the standard station boot that's also certified for EMS and a bunch of other stuff. I wear them every shift. They zip up in the front. Sometimes I decide to zip them up, and sometimes I don't. Either way, they're crazy comfortable. Their boots are tough and hold up well, and it's nice to know a company is thinking about stuff like adding running shoe soles and laces to their footwear, because we can't just be wearing stuff that won't stack up. They're definitely worth checking out if you haven't already, because the folks over there are doing good work. So go check them out at hikesusa.com or on their IG at hikes_America and use code THESIZEUP, all caps, to save yourself $25 off your order. That's code THESIZEUP, all caps, at hikesusa.com.
The day I walked out was the last day of work for me was March 31st. And packing up my locker and carrying that stuff out to my car was tough.
Yeah,
That was a tough move because I'm like, I've been doing this for 22 years. This is all I've known for not all I've known, but this is the
been
constant
your
in
life.
my life.
It's been your life.
It's been my life. I bled red, black, and gray and white, for 22 years. And it was difficult. But the day that my last day at work, I did it my way, which was pretty cool. I'm a truckie by nature, or probably half my career riding on the truck, either as a firefighter and lieutenant or captain. And then my last day, we actually had a battalion riding with us at that time. He's going to be my replacement. So I had him ride the car, and I rode the tiller in the morning downtown, and we went on runs. I packed up. I was first in. And then in the afternoon, I switched over to the uptown truck and did the same thing. And after dinner, I took over command for the rest of the shift, and that was it. And I got a send off by dispatch, which was pretty emotional. But it was one of the coolest things that happened was I had Mike Champo actually
Okay.
stop in at the firehouse, and he sat and had coffee with us for about an hour and telling stories. And the guys were just, blown away. Mike's a freaking gentleman and a scholar and just a great guy. And to have him come down on my last day was pretty awesome.
Yeah, it's one of those things. Like you said, you did it your way, right? It doesn't have to be. It's hard no matter what. I'm not even there yet. I've seen enough guys. We just had due to COVID, we had no retirement party for a very long time. So we just had, it was 32 guys total. 22 came to the retirement party, were able to make it. And one of them said, I spent a quarter of my life here if I live to 100 years. that means something. That's a huge part of your life. And that last day, I've seen, well, shit, I shouldn't curse, but I just saw 32 dudes do it. And on top of that, probably in my career now in my department, I don't know, 70 people retire or leave the department for one reason or another. And it's never going to be easy, but you can't just not prepare for it.
And that was one of the biggest things. I was fortunate enough in talking with my wife prior to this, I had to have something set up for me. So we created our business in 2016, Beyond the Basics Fire Training. So that was already going slowly and just keep moving and growing and growing and growing until 2020 when everything went sideways. And, we backslided, and in 21, we pushed on and made it grow again.
It's not even a backslide. It was a pause. Everybody took a pause, right? It's kind of an easy way to put it. Like you were forced upon a pause. And
yeah, especially in Jersey.
Yeah, especially in Jersey. But again, like that pause, I mean, look, the size up stopped. You know what I mean? Like even, the juggernaut that is National Fire Radio kept rolling, but not the way it was rolling prior to that pause, right?
Yeah.
We all had to make a comeback in a way. We all had to figure out what was going to work and how this is. And it's hysterical that, no, I guess it's hysterical. Like we were doing live podcasts, right? That was a big thing. Let's do live. Then 2020 hit. Okay, we got to go to Zoom. And the whole time we've been working to get back to live podcasts, we're now finding that Zoom is working better than anything. Let's just keep it.
Technology came about and handled that,
But that's it, right? And you had to have a plan, right? And this was your plan. Is it working?
So that was the
plan.
plan.
I feel like it's working, but you tell me it looks like it's working.
No, it's doing well. Sometimes too good. We're busy. That's one of the things that, I talk to a lot of retirees. I'm busier now than I was when I was working. And I just didn't understand that. And I still don't to a certain extent. And it's self-induced, which is fine. But I can't sit still. If I go to the beach, I'm sitting in my chair for maybe 10 minutes, then I'm in the water. And then I'm back, I'm dry off. I'm like, I got to go do something. I got to either walk. I just can't sit. So that's one of the biggest things for me. So I'm always doing something, working on something, just because I need to stay busy. That's my personality. And
our career too creates structure, right? Because we know when we're going to work, we know where we're going for the most part. We know those days and we plan everything around them. And what I hear from a lot of retirees is, I don't got to do that anymore. And then getting used to that, I don't got to do that anymore, can go one of two ways. One is you do absolutely nothing with your time, or the other is you become way busier because you're like, I can do that. I can do that. I can do that. I can do that.
Exactly. One of the biggest things regarding structure, I'll bring it back to the family. The dynamic in the house sort of shifted. I started doing more stuff around the house, and Amy's like, no, I do that. No, that's how I do this. You don't need to do that. So it was definitely interesting seeing that. And I'm around a little bit more for our younger ones. And, we have, I've got 2 in college still, and, Kelly's still in middle school, but it frees us up to do more things, to travel, to see them, which is awesome. I have my one son's down in Florida, and my daughter's a police officer up in Connecticut. So it's good that I have the ability, and I don't have to worry about trying to schedule it or get swaps or vacation or, bank sick or whatever you got to do to.
What? I don't know what you're talking about.
I don't know what,
We'll edit that part out.
Yeah, no, all good, but leave it. I'm not going to get in trouble.
I never do that.
You never do that. I may have done it once or twice in my career.
It's funny, in retirement speeches the other night, my director was there, and of course a couple of the guys were mentioned their use of sick time, let's say, throughout their career. But you have those things, and you don't have to worry about that anymore, right? So you're there for your kids, and we all try our best to be there for our kids for everything. And there's just some times where you just can't be there. So now for your youngest in 7th grade, you're probably seeing that in a whole different level of almost never having to worry about missing things unless you've already had something planned and then it came up. But
yeah, I'm pretty fortunate with that. She's sort of mad with me. I'm going to be out in Arizona for Halloween this year. She's like, you missed it last year. You were teaching in Canada. I'm like, all right, well, it's Halloween. We can work through this. Dude, I'm home she goes, but you're home for Christmas.
Yeah,
she was mad about Christmas was my last Christmas working. I had to work Christmas, and then because I was still like COVID Omicron time, like I was like 21. I was 20 into 21, and we were at short staffed. It was crazy, and then I call that the season of burning, because we just started burning at work the 22nd, 26th, 29th of December. And we were pretty crazy with what was going on. And I had to come out of work, get off of work on the 26th, which was my birthday. And then I had to go take a test. So I had a COVID test, got done with that. I was negative. Amy was negative. Kelly was negative because we thought we were sick or whatever, because policy or whatever. But for me, at least, then I had to go back into work for a work and fire. We had a third alarm going. I think it was Adam's shift, Alberti, and him and I, our two shifts burned a lot, and it just happened that way. The luck of the draw. And my daughter was like, "You're not working Christmas, right?" I'm like, "No, I'm done. I'm off. I retired. I don't have to.
And
I'll be
never have
around
to
for
go in
Christmas.
anymore.
I don't have to."
It's one of those things too, though. As a kid, and knowing my dad, I was fortunate because even when my dad did work the holidays, we lived in the city right near his station, so he would just bring the car home because he was on the car and hang out
Gotcha.
anyway. And times were very different back then. But but it was one of those things where even with my kids, like they understand that there's some things I can't make it to. It's funny you mentioned Halloween is like the biggest event in my little town. Like thousands of people are here. So
It's
it's
huge
like,
in our town too.
yeah, like I got to get Halloween off. Like that's one that I'm like using any time that I can to make sure I get that off. But it's those things that, I've missed doing the 24/72 schedule. I am on my 4th year in a row of Thanksgiving.
Thanksgiving, you get crushed.
Yeah,
It's the 5th year cycle, so next year you should be off.
I think next year is our last year. Depending on how leap years work, I think we actually had someone do it like 7 years. We have a
Thanksgiving's rough.
we have a retired chief. I'm not kidding you. We went to 24s 18 years ago, and he worked on the shift as a firefighter that had Thanksgiving. He got promoted and transferred and went to immediately to the shift that had Thanksgiving, and then got promoted, stayed on that shift, got promoted again, and went to the shift that had Thanksgiving. So he pretty much worked every Thanksgiving. I mean, he
That's
had the
pretty funny.
seniority to take the day if he wanted it, but it's just one of those things like he kept going to that shift. And so I could take Thanksgiving off, but guys, do
It's
you
one
want
of those ones
to?
that you want to be there for the guys. That's your other
Yeah,
family.
yeah, yeah. And
Thanksgiving is a great day in the firehouse.
it
Yeah,
really is.
I love cooking, and I cooked way more when I was a firefighter and a lieutenant. That much more than when I was a captain in the battalion. Maybe I made 2 meals as a battalion, but that was one of the biggest things. I loved cooking, and that was one of the influences of a captain that I had. We knew at 3:30 when we were on the truck, we were hitting the pole to go out on the apparatus to go shopping for dinner, and then he made everybody in the house help cook.
Mhm.
Whether we were doing sous chef, we were prepping, we were chopping, we were dicing, whatever we were doing, stirring the sauce. Everybody was there, and that was one of the biggest things. It was a Captain Frankie Sanchez. My mom gets a little mad because I learned my Italian gravy, my sauce, from him instead of my Italian mother.
You'll have that though. It's okay. And it's those things that you remember, right, throughout your career. It was just like going to this retirement party the other night and seeing so many retired guys that I've worked with. I worked with every retired guy in the room the other day, except for one, but I've known him my whole life because he was my father's best friend. But I have a story with each one of them that I don't always necessarily remember, but when you see them, it comes right back to you like it was yesterday.
I hear you.
And I think those little things are some of the more important things that we get to experience that matter, right? It's things that you don't even think about. Like, and when you get to share those stories, and it's something I love doing here is sharing stories with you and with the listeners and with anybody on the show, but that's something that doesn't happen in many careers.
Now you don't hear about like large retirements for the garbage guys,
Yeah, even
right?
teachers, you know what I mean? Like you don't even hear
Well,
like,
sometimes with the teachers, like I guess within your own school, because my mom was a retired teacher. Um, but again, PD, fire, EMS to a certain extent, because they're always like the redheaded stepchild, unfortunately.
I feel like too with EMS at least is you retire and it's a big deal, and then you kind of just go off.
You
Where
fade into the sunset.
sort of, yeah, I do see a change, in a lot of the folks that are doing it now, and social media helps with that too because it allows you to keep up with them after they've left. Um, but where I love it when a retired guy will come into the firehouse and just hang out. And even with this party, I worked the night before, and one of the past chiefs just walked in, and our three rookies are pretty much positioned at the desk almost their entire shift, unless they're
Yep.
helping cook, let's say. And he was like, "Don't know you, don't know you, don't know you. Hey man, what's up?" to another guy who was out there with him, and just kept walking. And the three kids were like, "What just happened here?" Like he's just that type of guy. And he appeared in the back room where the rest of us were.
Yeah, I popped in a couple Sundays ago, and it's great. Hey Chief, you want coffee? Yeah, no, I'm good. I'm good. No, I appreciate it, but it's good to sit down and BS with some of the guys for a little bit and go back. And I've only been back maybe a handful of times to a couple different shifts, and even my shift. But it's fun. But the nice part about the retirement aspect of this is with traveling and going to different conferences. Amy's gotten involved. She was down with me for the last two Memorial weekends for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. So last two years ago was October. This past year was May. It's been moved to May now for financial purposes. So October is an issue with the government shutdown potentially always looming.
Oh,
So they
okay.
want to make sure they can always honor the fire hero families. So Amy's gotten involved, and she's become part of a thing called the Comfort Zone Camp, which is for a child that has lost either a parent or a guardian. And they do these camps throughout the United States. Amy just did one with for the National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. This was actually up in Hardwick, New Jersey, and she went there and became part of it. Now she's found something, which is really cool because she's growing in something that I love in the fire service, and she's taking a different path to it, which is amazing.
And two, with her working, with the National Fallen Firefighters and this camp, it's something that she has a passion about on her own, let's say,
Correct.
right? Like where she's able to take skills from her other side of her life and bring them to help these fire families.
Right. It's amazing. And the nice part about the comfort zone is the NFFF does one annually, and then there's other ones for throughout the year that are for other kids that have lost significant uh, family members.
Yeah, and it's so good. Again, like we hate to talk about these tragedies that happen, but they are going to happen. There is just it's the nature of the careers and the things that we do in emergency services. But to know that organizations are trying to make the lives of those folks' families better is just so key to know that we have this in out there.
Yeah, I didn't even know about it, and Amy found out about it through coming down to the Memorial weekend and talking and interacting and networking with individuals down there. She was basically helping sell shirts during that weekend, and got into a conversation, and this popped up. Like one of the best things with again with retirement is the ability of having her come with me to conferences, and she actually got to see me teach, which is pretty cool.
It is.
She came out to Firehouse the first year I taught out there, and she's been down to Pensacola where I taught this past year, and that was the biggest room I ever taught, 500 people. It was pretty wild. I was teaching my command class, and what a high there was. I was nervous, but
But then for her being on the other side, and I can speak to this because Tracy just spoke at the National PA conference in Nashville, and I got to go, as I said, as her arm candy. And it was funny when so she's speaking and we get there in the morning and I'm like, oh, you're so lucky. I know you've taught in Nashville, but there's like a corridor that everybody walks through, and then all the breakout rooms are to the right of the corridor. And I'm like, look, your room is the first one. I'm like, that's really cool because then, people maybe just walking by will pop in. They don't have to go down to the next ones where the other classes are going in. And she's like, oh, I hadn't thought about it that way. Awesome. So I open the door for her and she walks in, and her room was the entire corridor, and she didn't know that was going to happen. So now she is in, like you said, the big room, 500 people, and I got to be in the back. And
watch.
watching was
That's
like,
awesome.
it was just such a great feeling because I know how passionate she is about her profession and about
Mhm.
palliative care. I watched her put the program together. I was the test guinea pig audience. I ended up being in the slide presentation because of the loss of my mom last year. And I got to be in the back, and it was just so cool watching her and watching all the heads bob up and down that, that when you teach, you may
Yep.
see one or two people that are in agreement with you, but you can never get the glimpse of how many people in a big room are actually agreeing with you. And I'm sure Amy kind of had the same feelings towards you in the back. And it's just such a cool thing to be able to share.
No, and that's huge. Those are the big wins. And I'm fortunate that, Amy and I have a great relationship. And, I don't know how it would have been, but like she was 100% supportive about retiring. And she was like, listen, time for you to go. When you want to go, you go. And I was actually, I was in Florida and walking around and talking with a couple people. And I was hesitant at first. And then I was flying home and I bumped into Andy Starnes in Charlotte Airport. Andy's the BC down there. And
And the
he meant
guru of thermal
thermal imaging.
imaging.
Andy's such a smart guy, and I'm fortunate enough to have him as a friend and a mentor and
I
on
just
my
walk away from him like
my kitchen table.
dumber. I walk away from him dumber than I started because he's so smart. I'm like, he
So
just gave
smart.
me so much knowledge. I can't keep it in my head right now.
And I talked to him like, listen, I'm thinking about probably putting in my papers and double clicking. And he's like, listen, you're closing the door to one department, but you're leaving everything open to the entire fire service.
Yeah.
And he goes, you have it in your heart to continue to teach and continue to share. And that was what I don't know if I needed that, but that just solidified my determination. And I walked back in March 6th and knocked on the Chiefs door and gave him the heads up is what I was looking to do.
Well, I think too, and you mentioned it uh, with Amy that, you had a conversation with Amy about, I think this is what I want to do, right? And got her input from it as well, because generally speaking, your spouse knows you best and it should be a part of this humongous life-changing decision you're about to make. And they may say, stay. They may say, like, no, you're not ready to go yet. You know what I mean? Or I don't want you home all the time. So stay.
Well, that probably came out a month or two after. Like, hey, you're home a lot. What's going
You should
on?
go back. Can you go back? How long do you have to go back in New Jersey? Can you go? These nights with you home is really annoying.
One of
It's funny. Tracy says that she's like, I like people will be like, so your husband, people in the medical field will be like, so he's gone like for 24 hours, and she's like, yeah, and they're like, well, what do you do? And she's like,
my time.
I enjoy the night he's not there. Like,
Wow, it's definitely huge. And one of the things that I jumped into joining a number of associations to stay busy. I joined the State Chiefs Association, State Fire Chiefs Association, and became the Northern Trustee. I got voted in, and that happened last Wildwood, not this past one, but the one before. And one of my guys is getting a Valor Award for a rescue that he made in January. So I was down there, and I was on the ballot for it. And my buddy's wife is videotaping it and then sent it to my wife. And my wife's like, I didn't know this is a 3-year commitment. I didn't know you were getting sworn in. I'm like, I told you about this. She's like, well, you really didn't mention it. But so I jumped into things to get busier, to stay busy, stay relevant, like State Chiefs Association, National Fallen Firefighters Foundation. And I just sort of within the state chiefs, they're partnering with the Fire and EMS Institute of New Jersey, which is more of a legislative thing. And we were just in a meeting down in Wildwood, and they're looking to do certain things and try to better the fire and EMS service and the civilian population. They're talking about Sino kits and making sure the that our medics are carrying them, and not many medics are carrying them, and hopefully they're going to try and push to get that for anybody that's has smoke inhalation.
well,
Cyanide and carbon monoxide are two major um, chemicals within smoke.
yeah, I mean,
So
that's what most of our victims are dying from is smoke inhalation, not burns
correct,
or not
correct.
a lot. We can
So
we can go down a whole different road with all how that works and your searching and nozzle patterns and there's a whole world. But I think one of the things you snuck in there is that staying relevant, right? And it's that you want to keep growing even in your retirement. And you're not going to be able to do that anymore riding a BC car, or that. But you're able to do that and to help the local fire service and the greater fire service by doing what it is you're doing and staying relevant and staying involved. Because as someone who's retired, you're able to do things that me, as someone who's active, or not, just because of my schedule.
And again, it's just the people that you meet and continuing to make that push to make things better. That's one of the things I was told, and you hear it. You always want to leave the job better than you found it, and that's what I'm just trying to do. That's my integrity is what it is, and that was one of my speech at my retirement party that my shift threw me, and I told them, I said the biggest thing is you always have to maintain your integrity.
Yeah.
Integrity is it takes a career to gain and a moment to lose. So
Even less than
maintaining your integrity is huge. And by staying relevant and staying in your lane of what you know and pushing hard to get the right things done is the right way to maintain your integrity.
and the other end of it too is we can throw the flip side into this too, right? That if you want to leave the fire service and have absolutely nothing to do with it, that is 100% okay too. You've served, you put in your time, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And
I just love, that's my
yeah,
passion. That's been my lifeblood, has been the fire service. My dad, ever since I was born, my dad was a volunteer fireman. And one of the coolest things that my dad likes to say when we teach, he goes, I started out in the city of Passaic as a civil defense firefighter. I was a C.
have the, a CD firefighter. Wait,
He
what
was
is
a CD firefighter for the city of Passaic.
I have a New Brunswick. I can move my thing, but it's down below. But I have a New Brunswick civil defense helmet from when we had the civil defense firefighters in New Brunswick. That
So
was a friend of my dad's who ended up being my neighbor. It was his helmet, and he kind of passed it down to my dad, and it got to me. But that's
so
such a crazy story.
So he loves telling that story. He's been at multiple second alarms. They used to come in at second or third alarms and sit on hoses and roll hoses and stuff like that. And then he became a fireman in Elmwood Park, and I was born. And then we went out to Long Island, and he joined out there, and back to Roxbury when we moved back to Jersey. And that's where he's been ever since. And he brought me into the fire service. I was reading Firehouse magazines as a young kid, which is awesome. And then I got into the fire service. And one of the coolest things that I feel is he brought me in the fire service. I brought him into instructing in the fire service. So I became an instructor and then brought him along, and he's sort of followed my path on that. And dad's he's studying his butt off because they just came out with a new thing that you have to have Fire 2 in order to be an instructor in the state of New Jersey.
Oh, so
So
he's studying for the Fire 2 challenge exam.
yep. And I think he's got that Wednesday. He's messaged me last night, and he's like, hey, I took 2 challenge tests. I got a 93 and a 90. I'm like, Pop, you're going to rock it. Don't worry about it. And he's like, you're an effing Hayowyk. Of course you're going to pass.
That's so awesome though, like to hear him still wanting to stay as engaged as he can be.
And
Right.
again, we're driving out together to Columbus to teach through the lock next Monday.
Good luck on that drive because I know you've done it before. It's
No, I flew it. I haven't driven it yet. I think it's 8.5.
Yeah. Well, it's not. So have you driven to Indianapolis?
No, I flew.
Oh, geez, man, it must be nice to be fancy North Jersey guy. Like,
Come on.
fancy.
I got to get back. I got to get back in time to go to work or handle swaps. Come on. I can't waste time driving.
It's a drive. I've driven to Columbus for a few different things, and every time it's a drive. Get to see America, sort of, or Pennsylvania,
Or
and
Pennsylvania. End to
Pennsylvania
end,
and
right?
Ohio. I
So I'm
consider
hearing.
that America now because, and then Indiana and a whole bunch of stuff west of that. But it's so cool that you're still able to share that with your dad, and to keep going and to stay relevant, like you said. And that may be the title of this is just staying relevant, because I think, again, whether it's staying relevant to the fire service, whether it's staying relevant to your family, to whatever it is you want to do, if you stop moving forward, it just doesn't work well for you, right?
No, once I stop, I'm done.
Yeah, right. That's an easiest way to put it, because it's like I know right now I don't want to stop anything that I'm doing, right? I don't know what it is I'm doing and everything that I'm doing, but I'm doing stuff and I'm having a good time and I'm meeting people and I'm trying to grow something with this podcast now and trying to continue something with 555, and even in my own career, trying to grow in my own career while I have these 5 years. So I think it's a huge important part.
Absolutely.
And staying relevant,
And
which
staying
doesn't mean
relevant.
I'm
I think
going on
that's a great
TikTok.
title.
It doesn't mean I'm going on TikTok. I'm staying relevant. I'm not going on TikTok.
I think that's owned by a outside agency, that social platform and all that
Yeah, I
good
have
stuff.
no idea. I just don't want to do it. I don't
The
understand
Chinese
it.
own it.
I don't want to do it. I don't understand it. My kids understand it, and that's
Listen, I don't do Twitter. I do Facebook. I do an Instagram. Uh, I don't get Twitter, so it's just.
I don't get Twitter either. I never have.
Am I getting old? That
No,
is that the 12 o'clock on the VCR that's flashing?
consistently. I've never done Twitter either because I always made the joke like I didn't fit in 76 characters. I guess that was like the
Definitely, you
first
don't
one.
fit in 76 characters.
And now someone's like, well, they've made it 210. And I'm like, I don't fit in 210 characters. Is that an easy way to But it's also that knowledge. Like, it's just, maybe I'm limiting myself. Maybe I am not expanding as much as I could, but I know it's something that I just can't take on. And if I want to do it, I want to do it really well. And it's just not in the cards right now.
Yeah, I'm afraid if I learn something new, I'm going to lose something that I learned. As you're studying for promotions and all that craziness.
As you get older, that's exactly what happens, I feel like. Awesome, man. Well, listen, this has been a great hour, I feel like, and we're right around that nice hour limit that I like to keep us at. And I like to start up with the size of 10 here. And we could always have a part two. I'd love to bring your old buddy Sean Egan in and we can revive that whole conversation. I think you three of us had on Thin Line Radio when you guys had that going.
Oh, absolutely. I'll see Sean out in Columbus, so we'll talk about that.
He was just featured on the Big Show with Jeremy. This is a little show with Pip.
I did
Sorry.
see.
He's on the
I
Big
did
Show
see
with
it.
Jeremy.
Yep.
He's a big guy though, and he's got that Buffalo accent and deep voice.
I love Sean. He's an amazing guy.
I've learned so much from him. And again, he's one of those people that I could call. If I have a very technical truck question, I know I could get a good, honest answer from him, whether I did right or wrong.
Absolutely.
And he puts a little sugar on it too when he says things. That makes it a little nicer. So I like
He's
that.
a big dude with a big heart. He's good.
All right, man. Let's go with the size up 10 here. You ready?
All right, I'm ready.
All right, here we go. Beach or mountains?
Mountains.
Night out or night in?
Night out.
A good book or a good movie?
Movie.
I'm changing this one for you. Cross country road trip. You can't say Amy. Who's your co-pilot?
My dad.
Oh, okay. There's a good. Would you have said that if I didn't say? Can't say Amy?
Yeah, it would have been Amy.
Oh, okay. I was thinking it was gonna be Amy. I'm trying to trip people up with that one. I think I'm gonna totally change it, but we'll see. You make your bed every day?
Yes. That's a McCraven thing. You get that done, you got something accomplished. And I told my kids that, especially my older boys, like, listen, make your beds. You got something accomplished. You're good. You start off on the right foot.
Start off with a win right there. And it's an easy win, especially if you're like me and only have a weighted blanket to throw on top of it. So I've made my life easier. $1 million right now from Jeremy at National Fire Radio, or you go back to 18 years old with a redo.
I like where I'm at. There's probably only a couple little things I'd change. So I'd take the $1 million right now. I'm good.
All right, well, I got your address in the pre-show questionnaire, so keep looking in the mail. I'll let Jeremy know to send a check. Check to the mail, buddy.
All good.
Highways or back roads?
I'm a destinator, so highways.
A destinator? Did you just make that word up, or is that really a word?
I don't know. Google it.
I'm going to Google that after because it may be
Destinator.
the name of this. I'm actually going to write that down. A destinator. Maybe the word of this, maybe the title of this podcast now.
Come on.
You just coined
relevant
a word.
Destinator.
A relevant destinator. I like it. Give me a bucket list place to visit.
Fiji Islands.
Very nice. It's on mine for sure.
That, maybe the Maldives, but Fiji, definitely.
I feel like I know this answer, but I got to ask it anyway. Football or football?
Football.
Really?
My girls played soccer.
Okay.
I loved my daughter is a police officer, played Division II soccer up in New Haven. My second daughter played soccer throughout as a little girl all the way up through high school. So I love soccer. Soccer's fun.
It's a beautiful game.
Real.
I
like it on the lower. I like it on the lower level.
Yeah, the lower levels are fun to watch. That's why I like watching Welcome to Wrexham, because it's a little bit of a lower level, and you're getting to watch guys out there. Not that everybody isn't putting their all in, but it's again I think what I like about soccer or football, it's the levels, right? Like you're barely watching AAA and AA baseball unless you're like me and can go to a Trenton Thunder game or something like that.
Yeah, I'm able to go to the minors up here up in Sussex.
Yeah, but you're never really seeing that in a lot of the other sports. So it's
Correct.
cool to see that in European football and be able just to watch the growth of people. And I love relegation and promotion, so I wish we did that here.
We
Oh,
talked about promotions, and that'll have to be another topic sometime.
totally different topic. All right, last question. Best advice you could give to your younger self?
Um, Sort of going to go back to like Ferris Bueller. Slow down. Slow
Life moves
down.
pretty fast,
Life
right?
moves pretty fast.
Don't
Slow down
stop
and
and
enjoy
look around. You might
enjoy
miss it.
enjoy the wins. Because for me, I get that accomplishment and then I'm looking. I'm looking for the next. I gotta something I could definitely even today slow down, enjoy the accomplishments, and then look for the future. But slow down and enjoy them.
I love it, man. I love Ferris Bueller too. My son Finn and I just watched it again for like, I don't know, probably his fifth time and my I could 500th
A
time.
million. Yeah, exactly.
It's just such a great movie to watch, no matter where you are in life, or even like wow, we use two Ferris Bueller references here too, because I use the licking your palms in the beginning with my
Yeah,
kid being
yeah,
sick,
yeah.
and
You're
now,
right.
man, it's another
He's
good
relevant.
time. I mean, it's totally relevant, man. Listen, John, this has been a great hour. I'm glad we
Absolutely.
were able to throw it together before you had your road trip. Can you let everyone know where to find you on the social media, where you're traveling to and going to be at here so they can check you out?
So you can find me on the interwebs, on Facebook. It's John Hayowyk, or you can find my training company, Beyond the Basics Fire Training. On that, as well as Instagram is Beyond the Basics Fire Training. I'm fortunate enough to be teaching with some amazing guys at the Syracuse Heavy Rescue Conference. We're going to be
That's actually so this will come out next Tuesday. So you're actually going to already that one's going to
Yep.
be done. Syracuse will be
So
done.
Syracuse will be done, and I'll be out in Firehouse. So yeah, Firehouse will be teaching in the afternoon, doing our Through the Lock class as a pre-conference workshop, and then I'm teaching Wednesday morning, my commanding the first 30 minutes and beyond. And after that, there's a couple other small things, and I've got a seminar down in Ancient City Fire Expo in November.
Where
So
is that? I've never even heard
St.
of.
Augustine.
Say, oh, very nice, St. Augustine, good place to be.
Chief, another Jersey guy, Chief Dennis Riley, who left Cherry Hill and has traveled and worked
Worked a
for other
few other
departments.
places.
Exactly. Him and I are teaching a command class, and we're actually going to be out in Michigan doing a 1 day seminar for a department out there on command and officer development.
Unbelievable, dude. You're everywhere you need to be. So wherever you are in America, you can find this guy probably, maybe internationally known someday soon.
I was in Canada last year.
I don't think we can count that. You can't really
It's international.
yeah,
Had to have my
sure.
passport.
You had to have your
Listen,
passport to get there. Whoa.
so go in a car when you've got it. Sean Duffy, I'm going to name drop Sean Duffy from Michigan, Dave Pruitt from Texas, and myself from Jersey, all in one car with fire gear and everything else. And as we're approaching, I'm like, guys, they're going to like flag us. We pull up, like, where do you guys meet? Oh, I'm at the airport. What are you doing? Oh, we're going to go take a class up in Canada. What? American Fire Service isn't good enough?
So at least you guys made it back. And getting there sometimes is the easy part. Getting
We had a
back
little bit
would
of
be
an
a
not
problem.
issue, but they held us long coming back in.
I too have been held long at the border once, but we'll keep that for another day, man. But John, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you
This
so
has been
much for having me on.
a great episode. It was good to catch up with you because we haven't had a long conversation. We've had a couple short ones recently, and we do owe our wives a dinner together that we're still
Absolutely.
trying.
No, we definitely got to set that up.
But listen, thank you all so much for listening. Episode 36 here of the Size Up with my man John Hayowyk.
You got it.
Thanks again for tuning in. Thanks to all the sponsors, specifically this much Hikes Footwear, Bridgeway Leatherworks, Notorious Fire, and all the other ones that I forgot. We have some cool things coming up next month with some giveaways from some of our sponsors. Keep tuning in every Tuesday. And for the Size Up by National Fire Radio, this has been Pip.